Lakota tribe was leaving at dawn. She had one night to choose love or lose him forever. The sky turned soft orange as the sun slowly disappeared behind the rolling hills. Smoke rose gently from small campfires, drifting into the evening air like quiet whispers. The Lakota camp was alive with movement, but it was not the usual kind of activity. People spoke in low voices, children stayed close to their families, and even the horses seemed to sense that something important was about to happen. Tomorrow at dawn the tribe would leave. Bundles were tied carefully, blankets folded, tools wrapped in leather. Women checked supplies while men inspected saddles and ropes. Elders sat near the fire, watching everything with calm eyes that had seen many journeys before. The camp was not filled with fear, but with a quiet seriousness that came from knowing change was coming. Among them stood a young Lakota woman, her dark hair moving slightly in the evening breeze. She worked alongside others, but her attention kept drifting toward a man standing near the edge of the camp. He was different from the rest. The rancher had arrived months ago during the coldest part of winter. He had come alone, injured and exhausted, barely able to stay on his horse. The tribe had found him collapsed near a frozen stream. Some had been cautious, unsure if helping an outsider would bring trouble. But the elders believed in compassion, and they brought him back to camp. At first, he spoke little. Pain and pride kept him quiet. He did not understand their language well, and many traditions were unfamiliar to him. Yet he tried. Slowly, day by day, he learned how to listen more than speak. She remembered the first time he smiled. It was during early spring, when the snow began to melt and the earth softened. He had helped repair a broken fence near the horses, working longer than anyone expected. When a young boy laughed at his clumsy attempt to tie a rope in the Lakota way, he laughed too, not offended, but willing to learn. That moment had changed how people looked at him, and it had changed how she saw him. Now she watched as he checked his saddle one more time, running his hand along the leather as if memorizing its feel. His movements were calm, but she sensed something deeper beneath the surface, a quiet sadness he tried to hide. She turned away quickly, focusing on folding a blanket. Her hands moved automatically, but her thoughts were tangled. The decision had been made days earlier, spoken in a simple conversation had left her feeling hollow. He had thanked the tribe for their kindness and explained that he needed to return to his ranch. The land he owned was far away, and he believed it needed him. She had nodded politely when he told her. She had even smiled. But inside something had broken. The firelight grew stronger as darkness settled. People gathered for the evening meal, passing bowls and sharing quiet stories. Laughter came occasionally, but it felt softer than usual, as if everyone understood that this was a moment to hold close. She sat among her family, but her eyes kept searching for him. When she finally found him across the fire, their gazes met briefly before both looked away. Neither of them spoke. Months earlier, silence between them had felt comfortable, filled with understanding. Now it felt heavy, full of words that refused to come out. After eating, she stood and walked toward the water's edge beyond the camp. The ground was cool beneath her feet, and the sound of the river flowing nearby brought a sense of calm. She knelt near the water, watching the reflection of the stars beginning to appear. Why was she afraid? She had faced storms, long journeys, and loss before. Yet the thought of speaking honestly to him felt harder than any of those things. Footsteps approached quietly behind her. She did not need to turn to know it was him. He stopped a short distance away, giving her space. For a moment neither of them spoke. The sound of the river filled the silence. "It will be strange when the camp is gone," he said finally, his voice gentle. She nodded slowly.
Yes. Another silence followed, not uncomfortable, but fragile. I never thought I would stay this long, he added.
But your people made it feel safe. She looked down at the water. You worked hard to belong here. I am not sure I ever truly belonged, but I tried. She wanted to say that he did belong, that he had become part of their daily lives, part of her life. But the words stayed trapped behind hesitation. Instead, she asked. "Are you ready to leave?" He hesitated before answering. "I think I must be." The way he said it told her that readiness was not the same as certainty. They stood together watching the dark water move past them, carrying reflections of the stars. "I will remember this place," he said quietly. "And the people," she swallowed, feeling emotion rise in her chest. "We will remember you too." He turned slightly toward her as if wanting to say more, but then he stopped himself. After a moment he nodded and stepped back. "You should rest. Tomorrow will be long." She watched him walk away, her heart pulling after him. Back at the camp, fires burned lower as people prepared to sleep. The night air grew colder, wrapping everything in stillness. She lay beneath her blanket but could not close her eyes. Memories filled her thoughts, shared rides across open land, small jokes exchanged while gathering wood, the way he listened carefully when elders spoke. She remembered the day he had stood up for a child being teased, not with anger, but with quiet firmness that earned respect. She had never planned to feel this way. Love had not arrived suddenly. It had grown slowly, almost unnoticed, until now it felt impossible to ignore. Tomorrow, he would leave. And if she stayed silent, she might never see him again. The realization made her chest ache. Outside, the camp settled into deep quiet. Stars stretched across the sky, endless and bright. Somewhere nearby, a horse shifted and snorted softly. She turned onto her side, staring toward the faint glow of dying firelight. There was only one night left, one night to decide whether to follow the path expected of her or to speak from her heart. Sleep did not come easily. Thoughts moved like the river, steady, unstoppable. She wondered if he felt the same pull, the same uncertainty. Perhaps he did. Perhaps he did not. The only truth she knew was that time was slipping away, and morning would come whether she was ready or not. As the moon climbed higher, she finally closed her eyes, holding on to a single question that refused to fade. Would she choose silence or courage? The night grew deeper, and the sounds of the camp slowly softened into quiet breathing and distant crackling firewood. Stars stretched across the sky like scattered light, and the cool air carried the smell of earth and smoke. Most people had fallen asleep preparing for the long journey ahead, but she remained awake, her thoughts refusing to settle. She turned onto her back, watching shadows dance against the inside of her shelter. Every small memory of him returned, one after another, as if her heart was searching for answers hidden in the past. She remembered the day he first walked without support after his injury. He had been stubborn, refusing help even when his leg trembled. She had followed quietly behind him, ready to catch him if he fell. When he finally stumbled, he laughed at himself instead of showing frustration. That simple laugh had surprised her. It was honest, unguarded. After that, they had begun spending more time together without planning it. Sometimes they worked side by side, sometimes they simply walked across open land while checking on horses or gathering supplies. Conversation had come slowly at first because of language differences, but patience built understanding. He asked questions often, not in a way that felt rude, but with genuine curiosity. He wanted to know the meaning behind traditions, why certain songs were sung during sunrise, why elders were always greeted first. She respected that he listened more than he spoke. The memory of those early days made her chest feel heavy now. Outside, a soft wind moved through the camp. Somewhere nearby, an elder coughed gently. The world felt calm, but inside her mind, everything moved quickly. The next morning would change everything. She sat up slowly, unable to remain still. Wrapping her shawl around her shoulders, she stepped outside. The moonlight painted the ground in pale silver, and shadows stretched long between the tents. A small group of elders sat near a low fire, speaking quietly. They noticed her but did not interrupt her thoughts. One elder gave her a knowing glance, as if understanding what she carried inside without needing words. She walked past them, heading toward the place where horses were tied. The rancher was there, just as she expected. He stood beside his horse, brushing its coat slowly, his movements calm but focused. The sound of the brush moving through the animal's hair felt steady, almost comforting. He noticed her approach and smiled gently. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "Too many thoughts." He nodded as if he understood more than she said. "Same for me." For a moment they stood in silence, listening to the horse shift its weight.
"You will travel far tomorrow," he said after a while.
"Yes. And you are ready?" She hesitated. "I must be." He seemed to consider her words carefully.
"I have been thinking about the first day I came here," he said quietly. "I was sure I would not stay long. I thought I would recover and leave quickly, but time changed that." She looked at him, sensing something deeper behind his calm tone. "This place," he continued slowly, searching for the right words, "it changed how I see things. People here look at life differently. Slower, more connected." She felt warmth in her chest hearing him say that.
"You learned quickly," she replied.
He laughed softly. "I made many mistakes, but you kept trying," she said. Their eyes met, and the moment felt heavier than before. He looked away first, focusing again on the horse. "I do not know what it will feel like when you are gone," he admitted. "The camp has been my world for many months. It will be strange to wake up without hearing voices around the fire." She wanted to ask if he would miss her specifically, but fear stopped her. "Instead," she said, "you will return to your land. That is important to you."
"Yes," he said quietly. "It is what I know."
The way he spoke made her realize something. He believed their paths were already decided. They spoke a little longer about simple things, the weather, the journey ahead, small memories that felt safe to share, but beneath every word was something unspoken. When she returned to her shelter, her thoughts felt even more restless. Morning came slowly. The sky shifted from deep blue to pale gray, and the camp began to stir again. People moved with purpose now, finishing preparations. Children were guided to stay close, and final bundles were tied onto horses. She helped her family organize supplies, but her mind kept returning to the conversation by the horses. She felt torn between two truths: loyalty to her people and a growing feeling that her life might change if she spoke honestly. During the day, she overheard quiet conversations among others. Some mentioned the rancher kindly, praising his hard work and respectful nature. Others spoke more cautiously, reminding each other that outsiders followed different paths. Her mother approached her later, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You carry many thoughts," she said softly. She lowered her gaze, unsure how to respond. "Change is never simple," her mother continued, "but the heart often knows more than the mind allows." The words stayed with her long after the conversation ended. As the sun began to set again, the tribe gathered for one final evening together. Food was shared, stories told, and laughter returned briefly, though tinged with sadness. He watched him from across the fire. He listened carefully to an elder's story, smiling at the right moments, fully present in the moment. Seeing him surrounded by her people made her realize how deeply he had become part of this chapter of her life. Later, when the gathering ended, she walked alone towards the edge of camp. The sky burned with deep red colors before fading into night. She thought about all the small moments that had brought them here, the shared work, the quiet understanding, the growing trust neither had named. Was love supposed to feel like this? Slow, gentle, yet impossible to ignore? Behind her, footsteps approached again. She did not turn immediately, but she knew it was him. They stood side by side, watching the last light disappear. "Tomorrow," he said softly.
"Yes," she replied. Neither added more.
The silence between them felt full of meaning, like a bridge waiting to be crossed. But neither stepped forward yet, and as the stars appeared once more, she realized that the decision she feared could no longer be avoided. Only one night remained before everything changed. The night before departure felt different from all other nights. Even the air seemed heavier. as if it carried the weight of many unspoken thoughts. Fires burned brighter than usual, and people stayed awake longer, sharing stories and memories that felt important to hold on to. She sat near the edge of the gathering, watching the flames rise and fall. Shadows moved across faces she had known her entire life. Some people laughed, some spoke quietly, and others simply listened, letting the moment pass slowly. Her thoughts kept returning to him. He sat across the circle, listening to an elder tell a story about journeys and choices. The elder spoke about paths that cross and separate, about how people meet for reasons that may not be clear at first but become meaningful over time. She wondered if he understood how deeply those words touched her. The firelight reflected in his eyes, and for a moment she felt as if the world had narrowed to just the space between them. She remembered when he first arrived, weak, uncertain, carrying more silence than words. Now he sat among her people with quiet confidence, understanding their rhythms, their ways of speaking, their humor. He had changed, and so had she. After the stories ended, music began softly. Some people stood and moved slowly to the rhythm, their movements calm and natural. Children fell asleep near their parents wrapped in blankets. The night felt peaceful but filled with emotion. She stood and walked away from the fire, needing space to think. The sky stretched endlessly above her, filled with stars that seemed close enough to touch. She walked toward a hill overlooking the camp, a place where she often went when she needed quiet. Her heart felt pulled in two directions. Her tribe was her home, her identity, her history. Every lesson she had learned, every value she carried, came from them. Leaving that behind was not a simple choice, but loving someone who might not walk the same path felt just as difficult. She sat on the grass, hugging her knees, listening to the distant sounds of laughter and conversation fading behind her. Footsteps approached again. She turned slowly, already knowing who it was. He stopped a few steps away, giving her space. "I thought you might be here," he said gently. She gave a small smile. "I needed to think." He nodded and sat down nearby, not too close but not distant either. They both looked toward the camp below, watching the fires glow like small stars on the ground. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. "I have been thinking about tomorrow." "So have I," she said softly. He picked up a small stone and turned it in his hand as if searching for the right words. "When I first came here, I believed everything in my life was already decided. My land, my work, my path. But being here showed me things can change." She listened carefully, feeling her heartbeat quicken. "I learned that strength does not always look like what I thought," he continued. "Sometimes it is patience. Sometimes it is listening. Sometimes it is trusting people you did not expect to trust." His words felt like quiet confessions. "You learned well," she said. He looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "You helped me learn." The words made her chest tighten. "I did nothing," she replied. "You did more than you think," he said gently. "You were patient when I did not understand. You showed me things without making me feel small." She felt warmth rise to her face, unsure how to respond. Silence returned again, but it felt different now, closer, more honest. "I will miss this," he said finally. "This?" she asked. He looked around at the open land, the stars, the camp below. Then his gaze returned to her, all of it. She wanted to ask if he meant her too, but fear held her back again.
"Do you ever wish you could stay?" she asked instead.
He hesitated. "Yes," he admitted quietly. "But wishing and choosing are not always the same." His answer felt like a wall she did not know how to cross. She looked down at her hands, feeling the weight of every moment they had shared. The laughter, the work, the quiet understanding. None of it felt temporary to her. "I do not know what tomorrow will feel like," she said slowly. "When the camp moves, everything changes." He nodded. "Change is part of life, but some changes feel heavier," she said. He studied her face, as if sensing something deeper beneath her words.
"Is there something you want to say?" he asked gently.
Her heart raced. This was the moment she had imagined, the chance to speak honestly. But the words felt too big, too fragile. Instead, she said, "I am afraid of regret." He looked surprised by her honesty.
"I understand that," he said quietly. "There are many things I wish I had said earlier in life." They sat together in silence again, but now the silence felt like a question waiting for an answer.
She wanted to tell him everything, how his presence had changed her days, how she noticed the way he treated people with kindness, how she felt safer when he was near. But fear of losing balance between her world and his stopped her. "What will you do after we leave?" she asked finally. "Return to my ranch," he said. "Repair what needs fixing. Start again."
"Alone?"
He smiled faintly.
"I have been alone before."
A shooting star crossed the sky, disappearing quickly. She closed her eyes briefly, wishing for courage. When she opened them again, he was watching her with quiet concern. "You look like you are carrying something heavy," he said softly. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of time pressing against her. "I do not know how to choose between what I feel and what I know," she admitted. He did not interrupt. She continued, "My life has always followed the path of my people. It is who I am. But sometimes I wonder if there are other paths too." He listened carefully, his expression serious but gentle. "Whatever you choose," he said slowly, "should be something that lets you look back without regret." His words stayed with her long after they fell into silence again. Eventually, they stood and walked back toward the camp together. The fires had grown smaller, and most people had gone to sleep. They stopped near her shelter. "Good night," he said quietly. "Good night," she replied. He hesitated for a moment as if wanting to say more, but then he turned and walked away. She watched him until he disappeared into the darkness. Lying down later, she realized something had changed. The conversation had not given her clear answers, but it had removed the illusion that time was endless. Morning would come soon, and when it did, she would have to choose whether to remain silent or finally speak from her heart. Outside, the stars slowly shifted across the sky, counting down the final hours before dawn. Dawn arrived quietly, almost gently, as if the world wanted to give everyone one last moment before change began. The sky shifted from deep blue to soft gray, and the first light touched the land slowly. Cold air moved through the camp, carrying the smell of earth and smoke from fires that had burned through the night. She opened her eyes before anyone called for waking. Sleep had come only in small moments, and her thoughts had never fully rested. But for a few seconds she lay still, listening to the sounds around her. Horses moving softly, low voices beginning to rise, the quiet rustle of blankets being folded. Today was the day the tribe would leave. She sat up slowly, wrapping her shawl around her shoulders. Outside, people were already preparing for the journey. Saddles were tightened, bundles secured, and elders moved carefully between families, offering calm guidance. Everything felt both familiar and different. She stepped outside and looked toward the horizon. The rising sun painted the sky in pale gold, and for a moment she felt frozen between two worlds. One behind her, filled with everything she had always known, and another waiting ahead, full of uncertainty. Her eyes searched the camp until she found him. He stood beside his horse, adjusting the straps on his saddle. His movements were steady, but she could see tension in the way his shoulders held firm. He paused once, looking toward the tribe as if trying to memorize every detail. Her heart tightened. This was real. In a short time their paths would separate unless she changed something. She turned away and began helping her family prepare. Her hands moved automatically, but her thoughts remained elsewhere. Every sound felt louder, every moment more important.
An elder approached her quietly.
The elder's face showed wisdom shaped by many years. "You carry a storm inside," the elder said gently. She lowered her gaze. "I do not know what to do." The elder nodded slowly. "Sometimes the hardest journeys are not the ones we walk with our feet, but the ones we walk with our heart." She listened carefully. "You cannot control where the path leads," the elder continued, but you can choose whether you walk it with honesty." The words settled deeply within her. As the tribe gathered near the center of camp for final instructions, she felt the weight of time pressing against her. People mounted their horses, children climbed up behind parents, and the sound of hooves shifting against the ground filled the air. He remained apart from the group, standing quietly with his horse. She watched him carefully. He looked calm, but she sensed something hidden beneath that calmness. Perhaps the same uncertainty she felt. The tribe began to move slowly, forming a line ready to leave. Dust rose lightly as hooves stepped forward. Her heart began to race. If she stayed silent now, there would be no second chance. She took a step forward, then stopped. Fear held her still. What if she spoke and changed everything? What if he did not feel the same? What if she disrupted the balance between their worlds? The line of riders moved forward another few steps. Time was slipping away. She remembered his words from the night before, that choices should be made without regret. The thought gave her strength. Before she could lose courage again, she walked toward him. He noticed her approach and turned, surprise flickering across his face. "You are not with the others?" he asked. Her voice felt tight at first, but she forced herself to speak. "I need to say something before we leave." He nodded slowly, sensing the seriousness in her tone. She took a deep breath. The world around them seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them standing in the growing light of morning.
"I have been afraid to speak," she began. "Not because I do not know what I feel, but because I fear what change might bring." He listened without interrupting, his eyes steady. "When you came here," she continued, "I thought you were only passing through. I believed you would leave and become a memory. But time changed things. Her hands trembled slightly, but she kept speaking. You became important to this place, and to me." The words felt both heavy and freeing. He stared at her, surprised and thoughtful. She continued before doubt could stop her. "If I say nothing today, I will carry regret for the rest of my life. I do not want silence to decide my path." For a long moment he said nothing. The sounds of the departing tribe continued behind them, but she focused only on his reaction. Finally, he spoke quietly. "I wondered if you felt something too, but I did not want to place a burden on you." Relief and nervousness mixed inside her. "I feared that loving someone from another path would be impossible," she admitted. He nodded slowly. "I feared the same. I did not want to take you away from your world." His honesty made her heart feel lighter. "I do not know what the future looks like," she said, "but I know that pretending this does not exist would be wrong." He took a step closer, not rushing, but closing the distance between them. "I have felt this connection for a long time," he admitted, "but I believed leaving was the only choice."
I thought staying would create conflict for you. She shook her head gently.
"The choice should be ours, not fear's." They stood quietly, feeling the weight of the moment. Behind them, the tribe had begun moving further away, though some riders slowed, giving her space to decide. "What do we do now?" he asked softly. She thought for a moment. "We do not abandon who we are," she said, "but we do not ignore what we feel either." He nodded slowly, understanding growing in his eyes. The decision was not simple or dramatic. It was steady, honest, and real. Instead of choosing one world over another, they chose to walk forward together and see where the path led. The morning sun rose higher, warming the land around them. She felt lighter than she had in days. For the first time since learning about his departure, she felt peace instead of fear. Together, they turned towards the moving line of riders, ready to face whatever came next. Not as strangers separated by silence, but as two people who had finally spoken the truth. And as they began to move forward, side by side, the future no longer felt like something to fear. It felt like something to discover. The morning light grew stronger as the tribe moved slowly across the open land. Horses walked in steady rhythm, and the soft sound of hooves blended with the whisper of wind moving through tall grass. She rode among her people, But everything felt different now. He rode beside her. The decision they had made at dawn had not been loud or dramatic. No one had shouted or argued. It had been quiet, honest, and filled with understanding. Instead of parting ways, he chose to travel with the tribe for a time, to learn more and to see where their shared path might lead. At first, some people watched him with curiosity. Others nodded with quiet approval, remembering how he had earned respect during the months he stayed with them. The elders said little, but their calm expressions showed acceptance. She felt both relief and uncertainty. Speaking her truth had lifted a heavy weight from her heart, yet the future remained unknown. But for the first time, uncertainty felt exciting instead of frightening. As they rode, he glanced at her occasionally, offering small smiles that felt warm and real. They did not speak constantly. Instead, they shared comfortable silence, understanding that words were not always needed. The land stretched wide around them. Hills rolled gently into the distance, and the sky seemed endless. The journey forward felt like a reflection of their new beginning, open, without clear boundaries. Later that day, the tribe stopped near a river to rest. People dismounted, stretching their legs and checking supplies. Children ran near the water, laughing as they skipped stones across the surface. He helped unload bundles without being asked. His movements showed familiarity now, no longer hesitant like when he first arrived months ago. She watched him quietly, feeling proud of how far he had come. An elder approached him and spoke calmly. Though she could not hear every word, she saw him listen carefully and nod with respect. When the elder walked away, he looked thoughtful but peaceful. "What did the elder say?" she asked when he returned. He smiled slightly. He said that walking a new path requires patience, and that sometimes the heart sees further than the eyes. She laughed softly. "That sounds like him." They sat together near the river, watching sunlight reflect off the moving water. "Do you regret staying?" she asked gently. He shook his head. "No, I feel lighter, as if I made the right choice even if I do not fully understand where it leads." She felt the same. The journey continued over several days. Each morning brought new landscapes, and each evening ended with shared meals and stories around the fire. Slowly, their relationship changed from something uncertain into something steady. They spoke more openly now, sharing small details about their pasts. He told her about his ranch, the long winters, the loneliness of working alone, the quiet satisfaction of caring for land. She shared stories about her childhood, about lessons from elders, and about the deep connection she felt to her people and traditions. Through these conversations, they began to understand each other more deeply. One evening, as the tribe camped beneath a sky full of stars, they walked away from the fire together. The night air felt calm, and the sound of distant laughter faded behind them. "I used to think strength meant standing alone," he said thoughtfully. "But now I wonder if strength also means allowing someone to walk beside you." She looked at him, touched by his honesty. "In my culture, strength is balance, between self and community, between heart and mind. I am still learning that." They stopped on a small hill overlooking the camp. Fires glowed warmly below, and shadows moved like gentle waves. "Do you worry about the future?" he asked. "Yes," she admitted. "But I also feel hope." "What gives you hope?" She thought for a moment before answering. "That we chose honesty instead of fear."
He smiled softly at her words.
Days turned into weeks. He adapted further to traveling with the tribe, helping where he could, listening more than speaking. Slowly he began to feel less like an outsider and more like someone walking between two worlds. She noticed how children trusted him now, how elders included him in conversations, how people greeted him with warmth instead of curiosity. One afternoon, as they rested near a wide plain, he spoke about his ranch again. "I will need to return someday," he said quietly. "The land still matters to me," she nodded. "I know. But when that time comes, I do not want it to mean goodbye forever," he added. Her heart felt steady hearing those words. "Paths can cross again," she said gently. "If both people choose it to die." He reached out and took her hand, a simple gesture filled with meaning. The journey was not perfect. There were moments of doubt, times when differences between their worlds became clear. Yet instead of pulling them apart, those differences became opportunities to learn. One evening the tribe reached a high ridge overlooking a vast valley. As the sun set, painting the sky in deep gold and red, she stood beside him watching the horizon.
"This reminds me of when I first arrived," he said quietly.
"How?" she asked. "I felt lost then. Now I feel found." She smiled, understanding the deeper meaning behind his words. The path ahead remained unknown, but it no longer felt frightening. It felt like a shared adventure shaped by choice and trust. That night, as the tribe settled into a new camp, she lay beneath the stars, thinking about everything that had changed. Only days earlier, she had feared losing him forever. Now he rode beside her, not as a visitor passing through, but as someone willing to explore a future together. Love, she realized, was not a single moment of decision. It was a series of small choices made again and again, choosing to listen, choosing to understand, choosing to walk forward together even when the path was uncertain. In the distance, he laughed softly with others near the fire, his voice blending naturally with the sounds of the tribe. She closed her eyes and felt peace settle gently around her. The journey was still beginning, and as the stars moved slowly across the sky, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them not as strangers divided by silence, but as two people who had chosen courage, honesty, and hope.